The vast, echoing halls of sovereign power often cast long shadows over the proceedings within, obscuring the critical junctures where democratic accountability falters and the established mechanics of public oversight cease to function. These are not merely administrative lapses or minor scheduling conflicts. They are moments of profound institutional silence, where decisions of immense national consequence are executed with surgical precision and then sealed off from any meaningful public justification. The consequences of such opacity ripple outward, reshaping landscapes, redrawing the lines of private life, and fundamentally altering the nation's strategic posture. Yet the critical rationale remains locked away, guarded by layers of bureaucratic inertia and official denial. This investigative report pulls back the heavy velvet curtain draped over 5 pivotal governmental actions, decisions characterized by their decisive execution and their complete, unnerving absence of explanation. We are not examining common political maneuvering, but rather instances when the highest echelons of state power mobilized vast resources and redirected national priorities, without offering the citizenry even the barest framework of necessity. We investigate the mechanisms of official opacity, examining those critical moments when the machinery of the state operated without the necessary light of scrutiny, leaving behind only the cold reality of unexplained consequence and a persistent historical void. These 5 decisions stand as monuments to governmental power divorced from the expectation of shared reasoning, existing now as permanent, indelible facts that continue to shape the national trajectory. The first unexplained action concerns a project so large that its failure is visible from high-altitude satellite imagery, the Midnight Infrastructure Halt. This decision constituted the sudden, catastrophic abandonment of a colossal, half-finished hydroelectric project known informally as the Grand Zenith Dam Complex. Begun with great fanfare, promising clean energy, irrigation for millions of hectares, and a boost to regional development. The project absorbed 10 years of national investment and required the relocation of thousands of citizens before construction abruptly ceased. The official directive, issued late on a Tuesday evening and titled simply Operational Suspension Order 77B, offered no accompanying technical assessment, no cost-benefit analysis detailing the loss, and crucially, no rationale for neutralizing the nation's largest single capital expenditure mid-stride. Today, the Grand Zenith site stands as a desolate, haunting sentinel against an arid mountain landscape. The skeletal concrete structure of the dam's central spillway rises hundreds of feet, its surface pitted and gray, the aggregate showing through where expansion joints were never sealed. The immense scale of the failure is overwhelming. Down in the valley floor, the ghost city built to house the 10,000 engineers and laborers is slowly being claimed by the desert winds. Doors hang open on rusted hinges. Dust thickens on the windows of half-finished dormitories. The silence at the site is absolute, broken only by the grit-carrying wind whipping across the exposed rebar cages, which now stand like massive twisted metallic sculptures. The texture of the place is dry, sharp, and unforgiving, a testament to massive, frozen effort. Equipment remains exactly where it was left. Enormous earth-moving machines, their treads seized by corrosion, their paint blistered by the unrelenting high-altitude sun. Cables, thick as a man's torso, were severed, not by accident, but cut cleanly at the terminal points, suggesting an urgent, calculated withdrawal. The only documentation publicly available regarding the halt is the single-page suspension order itself, which simply cited unforeseen strategic divergence. This phrase is meaningless in the context of a permanent termination. Technical experts and financial analysts estimate the lost investment at trillions. Yet the files detailing the environmental impact studies, the geological stability reports that must have preceded the abandonment, vanished from accessible archives within 48 hours of the issuance of Order 77B. The sheer physical presence of the abandoned project demands an explanation that has never materialized, forcing local populations to live under the shadow of a useless concrete megalith that symbolizes governmental power exercised without consequence or responsibility. The only explanation offered through unofficial channels, unverified rumors of insurmountable geological fault lines or sudden depletion of the anticipated water source, has been consistently denied, leaving the actual operational truth permanently entombed beneath layers of official silence and 10 million cubic yards of static, lifeless concrete. Next, the investigation dissects the initiation of the Silent Protocol, a sweeping nationwide electronic monitoring system implemented across dense urban centers. Unlike previous documented surveillance initiatives focused on specific threat vectors, the Silent Protocol was deployed universally, targeting the flow of metropolitan data traffic with unprecedented breadth. Its existence became known only through subtle, observable physical changes in the urban landscape during a rapid, largely invisible construction period. This was not a system announced with press conferences or legislative debates. It was a system manifested through the quiet activity of specialized construction crews working predominantly during the early morning hours, often shielded by temporary municipal street repair permits. The physical footprint of the Silent Protocol is hidden beneath the surface of the busiest metropolitan sidewalks and boulevards. Newly laid fiber optic cables, far exceeding the capacity requirements of commercial broadband expansion, now hum faintly beneath those busy streets. If one places a hand against the cool metal of junction boxes in older districts, a faint, high-frequency vibration can sometimes be detected. The sound of massive, unprecedented volumes of data being processed and shunted through dedicated channels. These cables lead to nondescript, heavily shielded processing centers located deep within repurposed industrial parks, or, in some cases, disguised as standard utility hubs. The implementation was an operational masterpiece of bureaucratic misdirection. Resources were funneled through layers of existing infrastructure budgets, often categorized simply as utility grid optimization or traffic flow management technology. The sensory experience of the protocol is the feeling of constant, low-level electricity activity, a subterranean pulse beneath the city's noise. The systems analyze everything from aggregated mobile device telemetry and traffic flow patterns to energy consumption anomalies and digital communications metadata. While existing statutes provided for targeted data interception under judicial review, the Silent Protocol established a generalized continuous capture capability, fundamentally redefining the expectation of privacy in public spaces. When challenged, the relevant ministries issued identical short press releases, asserting that the installations were merely upgrades to enhance national logistical efficiency, and that all data processing adheres strictly to existing privacy protections. However, the sheer scale of the network, documented by independent mapping enthusiasts tracking the unique conduit signatures, suggests an operational capacity orders of magnitude beyond simple logistical planning. The data centers themselves, observable only from a distance, possess air conditioning units that vent intensely cold air, indicating a colossal computational load operating 24 hours a day. The texture of the official response has been smooth, polished, and utterly devoid of specific information. No technical specifications have ever been released, no oversight body has been publicly appointed, and no compelling rationale has ever been offered, explaining why such a pervasive, expensive, and technically complex monitoring system was required overnight across every major population center, transforming the metropolitan environment into a silent, data-rich ecosystem under constant scrutiny. The operation remains a ghost in the machine, running perpetually without a public mandate. Its humming cables, a hidden testament to unchecked state power. The narrative shifts now to the unsettling reserve depletion order, the rapid, undocumented liquidation of strategic mineral stockpiles. These stockpiles, essential for national defense, high-technology manufacturing, and monetary stability, were traditionally housed in secure, subterranean vaults, protected by thick steel doors, intricate sensor grids, and time-locked mechanisms requiring multi-ministerial authorization for access. For generations, these vaults were the literal bedrock of national security planning, holding vast quantities of rare earth elements, precious metals, and industrial compounds deemed irreplaceable. The operation, which occurred over a tightly controlled 3-month period, involved removing nearly 80% of the declared national reserves. The evidence is physical, immediate, and eerie. Visiting the primary reserve centers now, one experiences the chilling atmosphere of absence. Within the massive concrete bunkers, the air smells of cold, stale metal and ozone, tinged with the faint residual scent of the materials that once lay there. The fixed steel doors, once difficult to open due to the weight of the vault's contents pressing against the mechanisms, now swing easily on oiled hinges. Inside the caverns, the floors are marked by the faint geometric dust outlines where heavy lead and steel ingots rested for decades. These ghost patterns attest to the massive volume that was quietly lifted, moved, and dispersed. The procedure of liquidation was designed for total secrecy. Specialized transport units, unmarked and operating under cover of darkness, moved the material to ports and airfields designated as high-priority logistical zones. The paperwork trail concerning the receiving entities is frustratingly sparse, often leading back to shell corporations registered in inaccessible jurisdictions, or to deliberately vague government procurement listings. What information remains is locked away in oxidized filing cabinets deep within the capital's oldest administrative archives. Ledgers that appear to have been deliberately misdated or cross-referenced using obsolete coding systems. The immediate consequence of this massive, unexplained release of vital resources was a profound destabilization of global commodity markets. Certain rare earth element prices dropped by nearly 40% in a single week, a market shock that triggered widespread economic panic and drew inquiries from international trade bodies. When pressed for an explanation regarding the strategic divestiture, the only official response came in the form of a brief, unsigned memo claiming the liquidation was necessary to optimize asset liquidity, and that the funds generated were immediately reinvested in higher-yield, non-material securities. This explanation defied conventional strategic resource management logic, as the depletion severely hampered the nation's ability to respond to future industrial or military crises. The rationale remains locked away, inaccessible. There was no corresponding national emergency declared, no public infrastructure project requiring such a vast, sudden influx of capital, and no external military threat that necessitated shifting the foundation of national security from physical reserves to theoretical liquid assets. The feeling associated with the depletion order is one of profound, cold vulnerability. The sense that the national safe was emptied not by thieves, but by its custodians, leaving behind only the echoing vastness of the empty vaults and a complex global mystery that continues to vex economists and strategists alike. The official silence on the specifics of the transaction, the price obtained, the buyers, and the location of the supposedly reinvested capital is as impenetrable as the thick steel doors that now guard nothing but stale air. Following the internal infrastructural mysteries, the analysis turns outward to an act of international diplomacy executed with brutal efficiency: the sudden treaty void. This was an abrupt diplomatic withdrawal that unilaterally shredded decades of careful international accords and mutual defense pacts, fundamentally realigning the nation's geopolitical standing without warning or apparent provocation. The decision was not preceded by the usual parliamentary debate, ministerial negotiations, or even the customary background diplomatic signaling that accompanies major policy shifts. Surat pernyataan resmi teronggok sepi di atas mahoni. Kilauan meja yang dingin menekankan isolasi dan beban kata-kata di dalamnya. The unexpected announcement ripped through the conference room, leaving a scattering of dropped papers and widespread, stunned disbelief among the diplomats. The action took place in brightly lit conference rooms in the capital of a long-time allied nation, where stunned diplomats were left scrambling in the sudden glaring light of betrayal. The tables, polished mahogany reflecting the overhead fluorescence, were suddenly littered with discarded drafts of agreements and hastily written memos scribbled on official stationery. The bitter ink of the spilled coffee now stains the official record, a dark testament to the moment everything dissolved. The information was too volatile for the open air. Only tight shadows could hold the secret they urgently exchanged. The blur of his hand mirrored the chaos of the situation. Every frantic button press was a desperate demand for immediate connection. The blueprint of collaboration suddenly failed, revealing the deep, irreparable fissure running beneath the shared regional infrastructure. Global data streams now dictate the allocation of vital water resources, monitoring the clean flow that naturally ignores political boundaries. Allied operators swiftly untangle their arms during the confusing evacuation, demonstrating that interoperability requires immediate, precise correction. The thick official paper yielded violently, its jagged tear marking the irreversible break from the past. Against the sweeping expanse of the table, the short withdrawal notice felt unnervingly stark, its brevity carrying disproportionate weight. The camera flash illuminates her disbelief, freezing the moment she holds the declaration and struggles to accept the official text. An unbearable frequency tore through the room. His protective instinct was purely reflexive. Years of official order dissolved as the treaty binders tipped, scattering every meticulous plan across the floor in slow-motion chaos. The polished smoothness shattered without warning, leaving behind only the cruel, high-contrast geometry of the jagged fragments. Logistics ground to a halt. The two planners, bathed in the glow of the strategic display, fought desperately over impossible routes. Economic institutions, and even civilian organizations relying on the predictability of the international frameworks. Down the endless, sterile corridor, the final justification waited, shrouded in shadow and bureaucratic silence. Up close, the wall offered no answers, only a sheer, textured refusal under the flat, indifferent light. Under the deep blue twilight, the silent city stretches to the horizon, mirroring the vast uncertainty gripping the world. The tribunal's unauthorized modern decree is violently stamped across the open pages of the foundational legal code, signifying an immediate and overriding veto. Exposed by the macro lens, the dense, technical jargon of the executive order dictates power. The archival light preserves the weight of the official seal and the legal minutiae within. Guarded by complex cages and illuminated only by a single bulb, the Federal Register sleeps in dusty, impenetrable anonymity. 3 identical suits stood against the light, their silence masking an absolute consensus of power. The vast, dark granite edifice offered no welcome. Its windowless base sealed the secrets of the state within. The low ceiling and raw concrete walls pressed in, guiding the eye down an oppressive tunnel lit sparsely by the cold hum of failing fluorescent lights. The brutalist texture of the deep earth, granite and mortar magnified under harsh light, stand as silent testament to the crushing weight of time. The heavy steel door demanded its toll of identity. The cold blue light confirmed the scan, allowing passage. A millimeter of absolute pressure holds back everything. The thick gasket yields completely, ensuring perfect, airtight isolation. Every surface absorbed the sound, leaving only the oppressive weight of total, uncompromising silence. The oppressive silence became the interrogation itself, forcing him to cradle his head against the rising tide of internal pressure.
The tribunal's remit is vaguely defined, but functionally encompasses the power to review, adjudicate, and issue binding directives on issues involving national security.
Critical infrastructure vulnerabilities and cases deemed too sensitive for standard criminal or civil courts. It effectively operates as a shadow judiciary, its rulings insulated from the appeals process and entirely removed from public scrutiny. While traditional courts conduct proceedings under the light of public scrutiny and maintain meticulously detailed, accessible records, the hidden tribunal maintains only highly classified, often handwritten notes stored in locked safes within the chamber itself. The texture of the tribunal's proceedings is formal yet utterly opaque. The panel members, whose identities are protected by perpetual secrecy orders, conduct their proceedings. Without the presence of traditional court reporters, bailiffs, or even detailed stenography, the very basis for the establishment of this extra-legal body, the specific threat or legal inadequacy that required bypassing the constitutional judiciary, has never been explained. Legal scholars and civil liberties advocates have consistently challenged the mandate's legality, arguing that its existence fundamentally undermines the separation of powers and the right to due process. Yet, the state's defense has been consistent, a non-negotiable reliance on the original, vague reference to extreme necessity. The operational details remain shrouded in impenetrable secrecy. We do not know the full scope of its cases, the criteria used for selection, or the outcome of its most critical decisions. The only observable evidence of the tribunal's impact are sporadic, anomalous actions taken by executive agencies. Sudden, unexplained bureaucratic shifts, transfers of high-value assets, or the quiet reassignment of specialized personnel that defies standard administrative logic. These 5 critical junctures, the midnight infrastructure halt, the silent protocol, the reserve depletion order, the sudden treaty void, and the hidden tribunal mandate, represent a profound deficit in transparency. They collectively illustrate moments where the state apparatus mobilized its power most effectively, yet offered the least accountability. Each decision involved the deployment of vast resources and carried immense national consequence. Yet the critical answers regarding the why are perpetually shrouded in official, unnerving silence. The historical record concerning these events is deliberately sparse, filled with sanitized language and administrative dead ends. The physical remnants, the rusting concrete, the humming fiber, the empty vaults, the crumpled memos, and the silent chambers stand as tactile proof of sovereign power executed without the reciprocal necessity of explanation. The ability of a governing structure to effect such massive, inexplicable changes raises fundamental questions about the balance between security and democracy. Questions that remain unanswered, while the shadow of these 5 great silences lengthens across the modern political landscape.